and I decided we wanted to be the first in our family to attend. When I started 9th grade at Civic Leadership Academy, I had never even heard of an AP class before. I didn't realize you could get college-level classes in high school. Civic Leadership Academy became an AP for all school my sophomore year, and we had an assembly about AP classes. I decided to take AP Language and Composition, and let me tell you, it wasn't easy. The classes moved fast, but they pushed me to do my best, and my teachers here were so supportive. We took practice tests, and they really made sure we were prepared. I got my scores back over the summer, and I found out that I passed and will now be getting college credit. Passing AP Language and Composition motivated me to enroll in even more AP classes. I felt like I could definitely handle taking 2 AP classes at once. So this year, I am challenging myself with AP Literature and AP Calculus. AP Calc is my favorite class. It's challenging, but I love learning new things and seeing how different units and concepts connect to one another. I want to do a quick shout out to Ms. Guzman, who is helpful working with us before and after school and making sure we're staying on top of our work. Taking AP courses has helped me in my other classes too. In AP Lang, we learned how to read primary source documents, which helped me with my history class. And taking 2 AP courses is helping me better manage my time and be more responsible. These courses are preparing me for college while helping me earn college credit. I've already received some college acceptance letters. I decided I want to major in a STEM subject, and the skills and knowledge I'm gaining in AP Calc will get me there. And the work ethic I've gotten from AP Language and AP Lit is going to help too. I would not have had these opportunities without AP for All. So thank you to my teachers here at Civic Leadership Academy for giving me the opportunity to take AP classes. And thank you, Mayor de Blasio and Chancellor Carranza, for expanding these opportunities to students across the city. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Wow, Darlie, you are a great public speaker. So first of all, I am impressed by anybody of any age who says their favorite class is pre-calculus. That was not my favorite class. So Darlie, you are more advanced than I was at that age, and I want to give you so much credit for, trying something that was really difficult, that first AP class, and then realizing your talent, your abilities, your potential, and going for more and more and more. This is exactly what we hoped for and we dreamed of when we started down the path of AP for All. We said there are so many kids in our schools who had tremendous potential, but their potential was being ignored because in their schools there was no AP class. And we were sending a horrible message to kids who had great talent that they wouldn't get the opportunity that some other kids got. And Darlie, you're a great example of what happens when our young people are exposed to more and more opportunity. I'm so happy for you. I mean, congratulations on getting accepted to several colleges, right? Excellent. When are you going to decide?
I don't know, May?
May, okay. Well, I'll be waiting. Well, and the envelope, please. And I want to say to your classmates also, congratulations to all of you, because I know everybody is working so hard to achieve your goals and your future. So congratulations and thank you for all your hard work, because you're making us proud as New Yorkers. Let's give them a round of applause too. Now, the Chancellor and I just visited an AP classroom, AP English class, and we saw the kids engage in an extraordinary conversation, an exemplary conversation, thoughtful, articulate, respectful of different opinions, exactly what we'd like to see throughout our society. But we were seeing it from kids who were 16 years old. And it is really inspiring to me of what it means for the future of our city and the future of our country to see that kind of dialogue. That's what happens in an AP class, and that's an example of kids pushing themselves to go farther and learn more, and you can see the results before your very eyes. We know that when we invest in our kids, when we actually listen to what they need and what their parents need, when we understand that they can go farther and we show we care about them, we believe in them, we're ready to invest in them, it makes a huge difference. Human beings are really quick to pick up on the signals. If you're investing in them, it means you value them. If you're not investing in them, it sends the opposite message. So what we're doing here in this school, what everyone has done, is something to be very, very proud of. And I got to tell you, this school is one example of something that's happening all over New York City, and that's what we're here to talk about, because we're announcing today that we have a record number of New York City public school students who took AP exams in 2018. Over 55,000 of our students took the test in 2018. A record number passed in 2018. We saw an increase in the number of students passing AP exams in every borough and in every background. And it shows that this is the kind of approach that actually works and lifts our students up. I want to thank everyone here at the Civic Leadership Academy. Special thanks to the principal, Fong Wing, for her great work. Let's give her a shout out. Congratulations. And I think, am I right, the students here with us are from AP US History, is that right? So we are part of your history lesson for the day. We are making history so that then you can talk about the history we made right here. So I want to remind people of the history of this city, and it's a problem. It was a problem that some high schools, not just for years, for decades, for generations, had AP courses, and others had none. Let's be really clear. High schools in the city never had a single AP course. A lot of great kids in those schools, never given the opportunity. That, if ever there was a tale of two cities, just look at advanced placement courses over the years in New York City and you see, unfortunately, a perfect example of that divide. For us, it was unacceptable. We're not going to make decisions on people's future based on their zip code. There are kids ready to excel at every level, in every neighborhood, on every block. This is part of the ideal of this city, the values of this city, to recognize the talent and ability in everyone. But our school system wasn't doing it for a long time. It's our job to fix that. And that's what equity and excellence is all about. And equity and excellence came down to a real simple concept. We had to make sure that every school was being treated with the same sense of focus and priority, so that's investment. But we also wanted to bring the entire school system up. That's excellence. AP for All is the epitome of this idea. Highest level courses available in any high school anywhere in the country. We said our students can reach that level, and they need that right in every neighborhood. That's what we've achieved with AP for All, and it's growing all the time. It only started in 2016, but it's growing steadily, and the results keep proving that this is the right idea. So this was one of the first schools to get AP courses that hadn't had them. The number of kids here, just since 2016, we've seen constant increase in the number of kids taking the test and passing the test. Today in New York City, since this initiative started just 3 years ago, 252 schools have new AP classes. Now again, I want to be clear, some of those schools never had a single one. Others had some AP classes, but not enough. But now 252 schools have benefited. And it's not just the way it helps shape the minds of our students and helps them grow and reach their potential. It's also when you're applying to college and you have those AP courses on your transcript, I assure you, colleges pay a lot of attention to that. It is a signal to them to accept students when they see that. And it's not just that. It's that you earn the college credits, and then you don't have to pay for them later. And I think we can all agree, I'm going to do a show of hands. How many of you would like to pay less for college if you go to college? Who wants to pay less for college? Okay, we have a very strong majority. So the AP courses also help to lighten the financial burden later on, and that's huge. So in the last few years, here's what AP for All has done. The number of students taking at least one AP exam in New York City has increased by over 92%. I repeat that. The number of students taking at least one AP exam in New York City has increased by over 92% in 3 years. That's how fast change can come. The number of students passing at least one AP exam has increased by 65%. Our kids are applying themselves, and it's making a difference, and it's happening really, really fast. And this is good news for New York City. So I've said more than once, our goal is to be the fairest big city in America. AP for All is one of the best examples of how to create a more fair and just society, starting with our youngest residents who are our future. I would finish in English and say, this was possible. It was possible to move our school system this quickly because of mayoral control of education, or as some call it, mayoral accountability, which I think is another very good phrase. We could have an initiative, we could decide on it, act on it, put it in place, and see amazing results in just a few years' time. That was true with pre-K for all, 3K, AP for all, computer science for all the big initiatives are happening with lightning speed because there's actually accountability, there's actually the ability to get things done, and that's what mayoral control is all about. Just a few words in Spanish. Hoy anunciamos que un número récord de nuestros estudiantes están tomando y pasando exámenes de colocación avanzada. Estamos muy orgullosos de ellos. Estos resultados confirman que nuestro plan de equidad y excelencia está funcionando. El control de la alcaldía en las escuelas asegura que sigamos avanzando para ser la ciudad más justa del país. With that, I'm going to turn to someone who cares about equity so deeply, who knows. He was, Chancellor said something yesterday in a conversation that was very powerful. The schools that he went to as a kid would have been considered troubled schools, would have been schools that were considered the ones that needed a lot of help. The schools he taught in as a young teacher, the same. But he is an example of the talent and the ability that resides everywhere. May have started in a troubled school, but he became someone who ultimately would make sure that 1.1 million kids got the education they deserved. Our Chancellor, Richard Carranza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon. It's almost afternoon. Well, it's close enough. Buenas tardes. Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for being here today, and I want to echo some of your congratulations. We have not only one, but 3 principals here today. So I want to thank our host, Principal Wing. Thank you so much. But we also have with us Principal Badia and Principal Bleiberg. So thank you. They are 3 schools that exist within the confines of this building, and it's a great example of when you have a collaborative culture that all boats rise. So I want to thank you for your collaboration and for being here. I also, Mr. Mayor, want to recognize our First Deputy Chancellor, Cheryl Watson Harris, for being here. Thank you. And I also want to thank the Vice President for the College Board. You know, the College Board has been a tremendous partner to the New York City Department of Education, and in every city that I've lived and worked in, they've been a true equity partner in making sure that more and more students have access to higher order thinking skills, but the coursework to get them to college. So I want to thank David Adams for being here, and I know that President Coleman, if he could, he would be here. I just spoke to him yesterday. He's on the other coast. But thank you for your support as well. And finally, I want to give a big shout out, and she's going to be very upset because she does not like the spotlight. She likes to fly under the radar. But I need to tell you that this big shout out goes to our Deputy Chancellor, LaShawn Robinson, because AP for All, it's part of our equity and excellence agenda, but AP for All is her brainchild. It's her baby. She's nurtured it. She's raised it. She's created systems to make sure that we're able to implement it. So I want to say to her, without your work, LaShawn, we wouldn't be here celebrating this. So thank you. So at the beginning of every school year, I share a quote. And if you don't believe me, the beginning of the next school year, check my Twitter. And it's an anonymous 6-year-old student, and she says the following: "My teacher said I was smarter than I was, so I was." Now, it's my favorite quote as well.
I love it.
It's my favorite quote because it captures how I, and increasingly we, think about how our students are and what they're capable of. When we set the bar high, we know our students will reach it. It's never about bringing the bar to students. It's about help to lift students to reach the bar we've set. And as the mayor shared with us today, we've surpassed that bar. We are continuing to raise that bar and provide supports for students to meet those high expectations that we have. The quote also exemplifies what we mean when we talk about equity and excellence for all. It's not equity and excellence for some. It's not equity and excellence for those that have always had it. It's not equity and excellence when we hope that some would get it. It's about equity and excellence for all. And this initiative and the results that we're sharing here today give us a great indication that we're on the right path in New York City. Here at Civic Leadership Academy, there are 6 AP courses, up from just 2 prior to AP for All. Also here at Civic Leadership Academy, the number of students taking AP classes nearly doubled, and the number of students passing has increased 7-fold. Also here, there's a culture of high expectations, and as the mayor mentioned, we had the pleasure of sitting in a class and listening to our young people really debate a topic that's very current for today, and do it in a very professional, in a very enlightened way that made a lot of sense. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I was so impressed is when I arrived and I had my conversation with Principal Wing, she shared the path to ensuring that students have an opportunity to take AP classes. And the opportunities provided is a pathway of courage for our leaders. And why do I say it's a pathway of courage? Because often it means that you have to disassemble predisposed ways of thinking, that certain kids should be in certain kinds of classes, that the only way to get these higher order thinking skills are through placement in an honors class or a gifted class. And she said, no, 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 no. Every student can do it, and they went about the hard, often politically tenuous work of saying, we're going to detrack, and we're going to make sure that we set high expectations and provide a pathway. And don't take my word for it, look at the results right here at this school. So I want to thank you for your courage and your leadership and being an equity warrior for all of our children. What is happening here is also reflective of what's going on across our great city. With AP for All, we're telling our young people that we believe in them, that they are college material. With AP for All, more students than ever before are taking and passing AP exams across the city in every borough, across all ethnic groups. And as a parent who just finished paying for the college tuition for one of my children and is about to start with the next, I will tell you, Mr. Mayor, not only do students want to pay less in tuition, us parents do too.
Amen.
So walking into that freshman year with a bunch of credits in your bank makes sense. 55,011 students are taking at least one AP exam, up 11.4% in 1 year. Now think about this, because in New York we deal with millions. But 55,000 students are bigger than most school districts across the country. In fact, you'd be considered a top-tier large school system if you have 55,000 students. And in New York, we have 55,000 students that are taking an AP exam for the first time. The number of students that are passing at least one exam rose 10%, almost 11%. And when we look at where we see the biggest gains, in what groups of students, in what schools, we're looking at one of my priorities as a chancellor in action: advance equity now. This is what advancing equity now looks like. AP for All is closing opportunity gaps, and I want to take just a moment to step back and share a little more about why AP for All is so important. You see, it's about these individual classes and the college credit and the message it sends to students, but it's much more than that. AP for All is a lever to success for our students. It is a pathway. Offering AP courses means that you need to strengthen the pathway for those AP courses. You just don't offer them and hope that students will go. You have to create the pathway like our principal has done here. It means you need to raise the bar for your students and the adults that work with students, our teachers, not just in that AP classroom, but in basically every aspect of what the classrooms look like in your high school. It means that from the time a student walks in the door in the 9th grade, there's an AP mentality. There's a college-going culture. There's a reaffirming environment that says that you can do that. AP for All can transform the culture and instruction in a school building, and don't, again, take my word for it. Look at what's happening right here in this school. So I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you for this amazing investment, because if you look at how schools are funded, this isn't something that you will find on a line item in terms of a structured investment. This comes from enlightened leadership, and under mayoral control, mayoral accountability, I would also say mayoral vision for what we want our students. This can only happen in this kind of an environment under mayoral control. So thank you for your investment. Needless to say, a program this vast, and we're talking about, think about this for just a minute, 252 schools, 82 of which had no AP courses before this initiative began, is only possible, again, because of the enlightened leadership of a mayor who puts education first. And because our mayor is who he is and what he believes in, I also think it's important to recognize that that empowers us educators to do the hard work of creating opportunities for all. So I want to thank the educators who are teaching, the educators who are supporting. I want to thank the administrators who are creating these opportunities. And more than anything, I want to thank these individuals standing right behind me, our students, for taking the challenge of taking a rigorous course of study and doing it with a smile on your face. So to our students here at Civic Leadership and across the city, I want to say just these few words. You belong here. And when I say here, I don't mean just in your school. You belong in an AP course. You belong in a college-going course of study. We have high expectations for you. We'll be there to support you every step of the way. We'll be there to motivate you every step of the way. We believe in you, even though sometimes you may not believe in yourselves. And I want to say to you, congratulations for this incredible achievement. And also, following in the footsteps of our mayor, I want to say just a few words in Spanish, very few words. Quiero decir que nos da mucho orgullo. Estamos aquí presentes para celebrar el número de estudiantes que están tomando cursos de AP en nuestra ciudad, que es un número, una cifra más grande en todos los Estados Unidos, y que continuamente estamos progresando en más y más estudiantes tomando este curso de estudios. Felicidades, estamos aquí para apoyarlos. Nos da muchísimo gusto de que están tratando y tomando estas oportunidades. Y señor alcalde, muchísimas gracias por su liderazgo en nuestra ciudad, asegurando que nuestros estudiantes tengan no tan solo la oportunidad, sino que también el camino hacia el éxito y hacia el colegio. Thank you very much.
One of the things I took away from what the Chancellor said is that I am envious that he is no longer paying college bills. Charlene and I are still paying college bills, and we are looking forward to being in the same status as you. To Cheryl and LaShawn, thank you. It's, again, all this success and this progress took a lot of hard work for years and years, so thank you to both of you for all you've done to get us to this day. I want you to hear from one more person, and he is an expert. If ever there was an expert on this topic, we're about to bring forward an expert because the College Board is where we look to understand what our young people need to be prepared for college, how they can get into a college that works for them, and again, how they can also make it affordable by having those AP courses early, taking some of the burden off what they have to pay for later. So we have an expert, and for sure, Vice President of the College Board, David Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Chancellor, First Deputy Chancellor, Deputy Chancellor Robinson. It has been an absolute pleasure to be here and have all of these students remind us of why we're all here, and that is to celebrate their good work. It's an honor and a pleasure to have the College Board be a part of the AP for All work since the beginning. And I really want to take today to congratulate the students and teachers for their extraordinary work. This achievement takes a lot of hard work, and it takes high expectations, and it means that administrators and counselors and teachers and educators and all the folks you see behind you are all working together in leadership to make sure that our students in the city are supported in their AP coursework. It continues to be gratifying to see both participation increase in AP classes in the city, but at the same time performance, because that means that more students in New York City public schools have the ability to succeed in college-level courses in high school, and they are doing that, and that is to be celebrated. Our research shows that kids who are successful in advanced placement courses are more likely to go to college, to stay in college, to be successful in their college courses, and to graduate in 4 years, all while paying less tuition dollars. And so that is really to be celebrated, and it's a good reminder, it's especially important for our underrepresented student groups. It gives them a path forward. I love the idea of this path of courage, because I think we spend a lot of time at the College Board clearing a path for students to own their future, and that's exactly what we're celebrating here today. So it's clear from these data today that AP for All is working, that the investment in AP and in our students is working and helping them do what the initiative was set out to do, and that's to increase access to AP, but also make sure that those students are successful in their AP courses. So I want to thank all of you. Thank you to the students and the leaders here to help those kids be challenging in their coursework and embracing their future. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. Thank you. I like that path of courage. I like that. So I'd say any kid who takes an AP class is on a path of courage. I like that. Excellent. So, okay, we're going to do this for our colleagues in the media. We're going to take questions on the AP for All update, and obviously anything else related to education while we have the Chancellor and the Deputy Chancellors here. Then we'll take a break, and we'll let the students and everyone move on. We're going to bring in other folks. We're going to talk about congestion pricing and the MTA. Then we'll clear that out, and we'll take other types of topics as well. So let's start with AP for All and education topics. Yes?
After nearly almost $1 billion, the renewal program's coming to an end. Can you talk about that? And it's going to continue in earnest, but just without the label.
Well, first of all, 45,000 students benefited from the renewal initiative. I want to make this very clear, because I think some of what has been written about it misses the fact that over 4 years, the money that was spent was helping students in real time to have better outcomes. So 45,000 students, what did the money go to? It went to 100% fair student funding in all of those 94 schools. It went to community school initiatives at all 94. It went to summer programs, tutoring programs, mental health clinics that were available to kids in those schools, all sorts of things that we would like to see in more and more schools. And a lot of kids benefit, which is why you see across all 94 schools in total a lot of progress that was achieved in terms of increased graduation rates, better test scores, better attendance. So look, the students of New York City benefited in many ways. At the same time, we realized there was a good way to do this going forward, because we had a better structure in place for the whole DOE. And we also learned valuable lessons, some things that worked really well and some things that didn't work as well, but either piece will help us to do better in the future. So, you know, I am convinced it was the right road to go down, and I'm convinced now that we have a structure that can continue to take the lessons we learned and act on them.
She'd walk into a school and she'd see that, you know, people were choosing to leave, like students were choosing to leave the school. Only 25% of these schools had seen improvement. When you measure that, the fact that 25% of these schools were seeing improvement, and that students were leaving these schools, we talked about Wildlife Academy and these other schools, do the two correlate?
No, I think
People are leaving?
No, I just disagree with your characterization respectfully, and I'm sure the Chancellor would like to get in this too. To say that 25% is absolutely a characterization of what happened here. Go back to 45,000 students. That's what matters here. We said from the beginning that we wanted as many of these schools to succeed as possible, but we also understood some might end up being closed or merged, and some were. But it was not for lack of trying, and I think when you look at what happened before, the previous policy was destructive. It was a policy of close first and ask questions later. And a lot of schools got closed, and it caused tremendous disruption in communities. A lot of kids suffered because they were left in the transitional years without support. Folks at community level felt something had been taken away from them without an honest effort to fix it. These are in a lot of cases are communities that never got their fair share of investment. So this just doubled down, the way it was done before, just doubled down on lack of investment. We did not say everything would be perfect. We said we were going to go out there and create real investment, help kids right now, and see how many schools could really turn around. I would challenge you and say the numbers speak to an opposite reality, which is almost 3/4 of these schools have made real progress, and we believe will make sustained progress. And if I said to you, most things in the world we invest in, if we got 3/4 of the things we were trying to fix to work, another quarter we didn't get the results we wanted, but we still learned valuable lessons, we still help kids, I would argue that was a good investment. We could not keep doing things the way we did them before. It was not working. Other questions? Yes.
What, Mayor, do you think, what didn't work about the approach of the program in the schools that failed to show progress? If you can try to be specific.
Sure.
What didn't pass?
I'll start and again let the academics come in behind me. First of all, just let me frame the playing field. These were the 94 schools in New York City that were having the biggest problems. We understood it was a tough situation. This was not go into any of our 1,800 schools randomly and see how you can make them better. These were the 94 schools with the biggest problems. I would note that the state of New York believes today, in a recent information that came out, that only 4 of the 94, the 4 that are remaining of the 94, still have these foundational problems. So from the point of view of the state of New York, there's actually been overwhelming progress among the ones that continue. And I would argue to you that some schools have gotten to a point where even with investment, they could not be turned around. It's as simple as that. They'd either gotten too small, or there were reputational problems or other insurmountable problems. But we are not shocked, unfortunately, that by the time this administration came in and tried to engage some of these schools, some of them were at a point where, you know, a good faith effort just wasn't going to be enough in time. But for the others, you know, for 70+ schools, we saw real progress, and the kind of progress that will continue. So to be specific, I think, you know, what we look for, of course, is can we increase the graduation rate? Can we increase the test scores? Can we increase the attendance levels? Can we get energized educators in, principals who are ready to take on the challenge? If you look across the schools that did continue to move forward to 70+, the answer was yes. That was consistently true, that we could do a number of those things. So I understand why some might say it was a major investment, but I want to remind people you don't get something for nothing. If you're talking about the very toughest schools in New York City, they are not going to get better without investment. It's as simple as that. And by the way, the previous administration's notion of close and replace, well, what happened? A lot of the schools they replaced with, the much vaunted small schools, a lot of them ended up on the renewal list. So that was not the answer unto itself. We had to do something different. The last thing I want to say before turning to the Chancellor and his colleagues is the state of New York, when they came out with their most recent list of schools in need, for the first time, more schools outside of New York City were on that list than inside New York City. Now, a lot of us have been here for quite a while. If you had said to me 10 years ago a day would come when there would be more troubled schools outside of New York City than inside New York City, I would have said that was a very lofty goal. Well, it's 2019 and it's happened. And we expect a lot more progress quickly.
Sure. So thank you. Salim, just some more detail to what the mayor has talked about. So let me just say in terms of context, you know, unequivocally, without question, the issue of empowering, turning around schools across the country is an issue that no one has solved at 100%. Let's be really clear. And I feel that I have the ability to say that because I've lived and worked in 5 different school systems in 5 different states from the West Coast to the East Coast. So anyone tells you that they found the silver bullet, they're going to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge next. It does not exist. And every solution, potential solution, is really predicated in the conditions of the local environment. So I commend the effort that was made in 2014 around identifying a portfolio of schools. Schools, by the way, which did not exist in the wealthiest areas of our city. These were not privileged communities. These are schools in some of the most historically underserved communities in our city. And I think it was absolutely appropriate that we would take those schools and say, we're going to invest, we're going to empower, and we're going to do the work of making conditions better for students. And the notion that if you've invested $700 million, that if you had not put that money into these schools, that you somehow could have saved the money, it's just a red herring. These are needs that exist in that community in and of themselves. That being said, we learned some things from Renewal. And, you know, I'm 10 months into my tenure, and I will tell you that coming in, I had some ideas about Renewal based on my experience and what I was seeing from an external lens, and the ability to sit with educators, parents, students in all 5 boroughs, the ability to triangulate my perspective with the data that I now have access to as a chancellor, and to do the real root cause analysis. I can tell you there were some things that didn't work. One of them was a structure that we had in the DOE. Quite frankly, principals, and putting on my principal hat, principals were receiving direction from multiple sources. They had the direct supervisor, they had the turnaround person, they had sometimes another individual that would give them, in some cases, conflicting direction in terms of how they were to go. We solved that issue when we reorganized the Department of Education. We created executive superintendent positions aligned with superintendents, aligning resources and direction to go forward. It was a structural issue that was one of the things that was not effective. We also had, as part of that approach, a very much one-size-fits-all. There was a certain model that was implemented, and we didn't take as much necessary time as we should have to understand the complexities and the nuances of each particular school. Quite frankly, some schools didn't have the right leader. And this is not this is in no way something negative against the principles that were in place, but not every principal is a turnaround principal. And not every principal can be in any particular school. You have to match the skill set with the needs of the community, with the needs of the school, and the job at hand. And quite frankly, we didn't have, in every case, the right leader. And in some cases, I will say, we didn't take quick enough action to get the right leader in those particular schools. As I spoke with parents and students and community members, one of the things that they appreciated was the investment of resources in their school community. But one of the things that came as an unintended consequence was the stigma of the Renewal label. And once a school was labeled as a Renewal school, there was a certain stigma that came with that, not the resources, but this notion that you have a certain amount of time. If it doesn't improve, there are certain consequences. People felt that that precluded students from actually considering whether they would go to that school or not. And again, I would say in general, one of the big lessons learned that we had from the Renewal program is that you have to take a systemic approach to making sure that you understand the needs, the challenges, the obstacles that schools and their communities are facing, and then in a just-in-time way allocate resources, capacity, coaching, and capacity building so that the school continues on a path to get better. Those are big things that we very honestly have said were things that we've taken on as learnings from the Renewal program and are excited about the next step of the work as we go forward.
Yes.
If you believe that the Renewal program essentially
essentially achieved its goals in 3/4 of the schools. Why not continue it? Why not add a new batch of schools and keep it going?
Very fair question, but I think it is. So let me preface very quickly. Many of you have heard me talk about my admiration for Franklin Delano Roosevelt. There's a reason I say that in this context. The New Deal transformed this country, many elements of which are with us to this day, like Social Security. We remember Social Security because it's with us to this day. We do not remember some of the initiatives that they tried and did not work. They learned in the Roosevelt administration, by trial and error in many cases, but they had a very clear understanding, be bold, be aggressive, be creative. If you read about that time, they absolutely understood what they were doing. We believed that the previous approach was broken. It came with huge negatives, very negative effect on students and parents and communities, and it wasn't producing the kind of turnaround and results that had been desired. We had to do something new. So then the question became, where do you go? And as the Chancellor said, there was not some off-the-shelf model we could turn to. We did not see a believable model elsewhere in the country because many school systems have struggled with this. So we created our own. And we built it on the building blocks that we believed were proven across the board, in other circumstances, like the power of investment, the power of adding more time in class, more after school, more summer programming, all the things that we believed were proven tools. And clearly raising the funding per school, community school approach. So that's why, in retrospect, I believe it was the right thing to do at the time, because it's what we knew, it's what we had, it's what we knew, and it was the thing that made sense to try. Why don't we continue that exact model now? For the reasons the Chancellor said. One, it had to be a more individualized approach per school. Two, instead of what we thought was a benefit, having a centralized approach to renewal schools, it proved to come with unintended consequences. And the third factor is we went from an organizational structure which proved to be unwieldy. I think it was true for the one we started out with in this administration. I think it was true for the organizational structures in the previous administration. In the mayoral control era, which is now about 15 years old, there's been a certain amount of trial and error over both administrations trying to figure out what makes sense structurally. We went from a world that was very much about individual districts to a whole school system that still had districts, and we had to figure out what would work. For the first time, and I was involved from the very beginning, I was a school board member in 1999 before mayoral control. This is the first time I've been convinced that the team has actually gotten it right and has a very straightforward organizational structure that allows specific strategies to get to schools quickly and be implemented and be held, create an atmosphere of accountability. So my argument is we had to evolve to be able to figure this out, and now the lessons we've learned can be applied through our overall leadership team. We don't need a separate approach anymore. Go ahead.
Help me understand, so then, what specifically is different about the next strategy?
Again, instead of a centralized team that does renewals or designating schools as renewals, we are going to deal with schools within their district. If they need extra help, they're going to get extra help via their superintendent, via their executive superintendent, right up to the leadership here. There's going to be a constant focus on those schools, but they'll be within a broader portfolio of the district. And the tools are going to be available. We obviously that all the schools in question have 100% fair student funding now. That's going to continue. They became community schools. That's going to continue. And as we look at other schools that have needs, we will have those kind of tools available to add into them what they need. Please.
I'll add to that. So that's a really fair question, Alex. I want to thank you for asking that. So let me put my practitioner hat on, okay? And I'm not the chancellor. I'm just a practitioner. The art and the craft of school improvement is not a program. I want that to really set in. It's not a program. You don't pull it off the shelf. You don't pay extra for it and implement it. It's not a program. So I kudos to this administration in 2014 saying there's a group of schools that we need to radically change direction in and implement a program to shift the paradigm that existed, which is let's blame, let's close, and let's create something different without having a real research base. So renewal was effective, it was necessary. I give kudos to having a renewals approach. Now, where we are now in 2019 versus where we were in 2014 is a markedly different place. We have a new organizational structure. We have new lines of accountability. We have an ethos now, and we have an equity and excellence agenda for all with numerous goals embedded in that equity and excellence agenda in lots of different kinds of initiatives that we have. And the real work of school improvement is not a program, it's a continuous process of looking at where are you, what are the conditions, what are the changing conditions, and then how are we as a system responding to help you get better. Now the good news is, when this work started in 2014/2015, we were proving a concept, as the mayor says. There was a concept to be proved in New York. We really don't care what was happening anywhere else. It's interesting, but nobody can know what it's like to live in Queens unless they live in Queens. So we were proving a concept that in New York City, with our children, with our conditions, in our neighborhoods, with all of the things that happen in New York City, we could actually move schools in a very positive direction. And we have evidence that that has happened in New York City. So we're taking those lessons learned. What helped? You pay attention to the leadership. What helped? You have to have teachers that are qualified in their subject area and that are highly qualified. Our recent agreement with the teachers union in UFT, which gives us the ability to stipend certain content areas where schools have not been able to fill those teaching positions, is an example of how we've changed conditions. You have to pay attention to what the curriculum is in that particular school. This school is a great example of how they changed from tracking kids in certain ways to providing opportunities in a different way. That's different. You also have to pay attention to empowering communities and having conditions for community empowerment. Our community schools that is solidly in place now is a model for how we help to empower communities. The work that we're doing around empowering parent voice, and the mayor and I spending time with parent leaders across the city in all 5 boroughs, is a good example of that. That is not a program. That is now a way of work for us in New York City. And so the question of what is the new program is really an outdated, with all due respect, an outdated perception of what the work of school improvement, continuous school improvement, really is. It's not a program, it's not a moment in time, it's a continuous cycle of working the work.
Let's see, there's a little bit more on this because we got a bunch to cover today, so let's go quick through anything else on education. Go ahead.
I'm unclear on the transparency angle of this. Removing the renewal label, how do parents know that this is still a school that is in danger of closing, that has issues?
No. I don't know what has been lost in translation of what we've sent out, and I will look to see if we left any lack of clarity. There's no danger of closing. The schools that, there were some closed earlier on in the program, there were some merged. There's a few more that we think will have to go through a merger. We're being very open about which those schools are right now, but we're going to be able to maintain those schools' communities at the same time, which is one of the differences with merger, by the way. The school community has a continuity. But no, that's it. The ones that continue on. We believe they're all poised for future success. No more closures planned with them. We have schools now that we're going to continue to work on beyond those schools that need help, but our goal is to take the lessons we've learned and help each of them succeed. So this completes the original sequence, and the closures that were going to happen have happened. Go ahead.
It seems like a broader issue here. I mean, you could argue that the reason there are struggling schools or failing schools in New York City is by design, right? I mean, we funnel the lowest performing students into the same schools. There's extreme academic segregation across the school system. So I'm wondering if you are, open to changing that, if you see that as a path to school improvement here.
I think and I'll be quick here because again, we got a lot to cover on other topics, but there's a much bigger discussion that we will have in this city, and we've put forward some pieces of it, and there's a lot more to come, on how to make sure our children learn with each other and how to have the most diverse classrooms we can have. But that should not be mistaken for the primary way or the only way to ensure that kids get a great education. We have kids in every kind of community who are ready to achieve their potential. They need investment. They need high-quality teachers. They need the best possible principals. This is the path forward, first and foremost. That's what equity and excellence is all about. So I want to caution your construct, which I believe is totally sincere, but I think it leaves out a piece of the equation. You talked about a world in which kids were in schools that didn't get investment. And I wouldn't say they were quote unquote funneled. I would say they oftentimes lived in the neighborhood where the school is. And now you're talking about the whole history of this city and this country where there was inequality on a racial level, on a social level, on an income level. We're trying to address inequality more foundationally. But we also don't accept that the idea that any school cannot be made strong regardless of the economics of the community. This is, in many ways, a lot of people are talking about this in race terms. It first and foremost should be talked about in class terms, I would argue. If you're in a community that has been economically disadvantaged, we're not giving up on that community. We're investing in that school. We're bringing in more teachers and teachers with different specialties than ever were available before because of the Bronx Plan. We've brought schools up to 100% fair student funding. That never used to happen in a lot of disadvantaged communities. The whole thrust of equity and excellence unquestionably helps the schools that have had the toughest time the most, pre-K, 3K, AP for all, et cetera. So that is the core of how we change things. Okay, real quick on anybody else over here.
Last one on education.
Let's do it. No, I'm going to let the ones who put their hand up, but we'll try and answer quick. So both of us will take the lightning round approach. Go.
One of the terms that you've often used in your approach to failing schools is a war room type of mentality throughout your campaign and in the first term. And I'm just wondering, given that you're not, it doesn't sound like you're establishing any kind of structure like that, does that mean you're abandoning?
No. Just wanted to make it really hard for him to quote me otherwise. No. The war room is the leadership structure. So you have, it's real simple. Richard, Cheryl, executive superintendent, principal, really clean line. And when there is a school that needs particular attention, everyone in that line knows about it, literally. If you quiz Cheryl right now on the schools, the 73, I think it is, from the original 94 that continue on, she'll be able to tell you what we're doing in them. So the war room is embedded in the leadership structure. It's very specific.
I have a question about the 4 yeshivas that were denying access to the investigators. What's going on with that? Have dates been selected? And is it deadline?
I'm going to say what I think is the simple answer. Dates have been selected. We've been clear they all must happen in March, and they will happen according to our standards, our approach to evaluation. If any one of those dates is not kept, if there's any effort to interfere with our approach to evaluation, that will immediately end the process. And we will report that to the State Department of Education, and we will recommend that additional action be taken. Okay, real quick.
I'm curious if you've looked any further into the situation at Forest Hills High School with the teacher and no confidence voting.
I have not. I'll let the Chancellor speak to that.
Yes, so we are very much pushing in there. So our executive superintendent, Dr. Spencer, the superintendent, Dr. Composto, are working very closely with that school community. I've also been in touch with the president of the UFT, the president of the CSA. So we are all working collectively to address the issues that have been identified at that school, and I have great confidence we're going to be able to move through that.
Okay, last call, education, once, twice. Okay, thank you to all of you. Go back and keep getting educated.
I'm turning on this mic. What was your first one? That way I save me some.